Hi everyone, I'm Elizabeth Box. I'm here to interview my dad, Eric Stephen Box, author of Wing Over Wendover series of books. But before the interview, some excerpts of Wing Over Wendover, read by the author, my dad.
In the small town of La Grande, California, lived a boy and his falcon. Timmy was just 16 years old and could finally drive on his own, and drive he did. All those old country roads he loved so much, hunting and flying his falcon, being in the countryside, air as clean as the fresh, wet grass, and teeming with wild things that lived in every square inch of it. All he had to do was look. I apologize for being so rude. Let me introduce myself. My name is Wing Over Wendover, and I am a peregrine falcon. My story starts here in sunny California, where I was hatched and lived with my parents. Well, that is until I met my master, Timmy. Wendover was indeed a peregrine falcon, and peered out from a window of his little 10-by-10 room made of slats and stain. This room was called a mews. Wendover was talking to a little pack rat who had not moved a muscle. In fact, the little pack rat was paralyzed with fear to have found himself in the company of the strangest bird of prey he had ever met. Wendover continued. Timmy is a master falconer. He feeds me and lets me fly as high as I want, and we hunt. And it was then that Wendover noticed something strange about the poor little pack rat. The furry little creature was holding what looked to be a shiny small object. He was shivering and shaking, and his eyes were fixed on Wendover and bulged unnaturally out of his small rectangular head. Hey, little feller, are you okay? Said Wendover. The poor little rat cocked his head to one side and then the other, and then spoke slowly with more stutter and less squeak. Say, listen here. Are you going to eat me? Wendover started to laugh and flapped his wings very hard, and with a jump and a glide flew from his perch down to within inches of the fearful rat's tiny face. Say, silly, said Wendover, I thought I told you. I'm a peregrine falcon, and peregrine falcons do not eat rats. For a moment the little rat thought that this might be a cruel game, and at any moment he would be lunch. He tried again to muster the courage to talk to the falcon. He closed his eyes, concentrated very hard, then with a burst of energy blurted out, Why not? Because I am a noble bird, said the falcon. The quarry I desire to catch must be fast on the wing, like me. With that, Wendover put a primary feather wing over his heart and recited, My code of conduct is to only fly at those birds whom I can catch in fair aerial contest. He added, There have been lots of books written about me too, the speed of the chase and all the excitement. It's all very fun being me. Wow, said the rat, fidgeting with his silver prize. So let me get this straight. You are not going to eat me. Wendover locked his wings as if at attention and said, No. Seeing that this was his chance to escape, the rat quickly scurried along the wall of the mews to the hole in which he had entered. Then, looking over his shoulder, hollered back to the falcon, In that case, adios, Wendover, adios. But wait, Wendover said, What's your name? The rat stopped and slowly stretched his little head through the tiny knothole of freedom and posed. My name is Diego Maximilian Jones. I am from a long line of infamous thieves, and I am the keeper of the treasure of my ancestors. But right now I am very hungry, so I must go. Goodbye.
Thank you for the excerpt. Now let's start with the interview. Why do you like to fly birds of prey?
I have always been taken by the mystery of birds of prey, and when I was lucky enough to be able to start to fly them, I was again blown away by what it is that they can achieve in the air. I feel a privilege to be able to fly them. I like it because I like seeing a bird fall from the sky at 200 miles an hour and chasing something that I was part of. It's exhilarating.
Where does your inspiration come from when you write your books?
My inspiration comes from, I drive and I see these characters through these animals. And it's like, for instance, I'll drive from one pond to another and I'll see this little burrowing owl every day. And he'll sit there and he'll cock his head and he'll look at me and I'll look at him in the binoculars and I'll watch him for about 20 minutes and suddenly he has a name and his character has a face and his whole life has a story.
Now let's hear an excerpt from Wing Over Wendover Gets Lost in the City. This is for all you in San Francisco, the city by the bay.
Wing Over Wendover was puzzled. In fact, he was downright confused. Timmy had driven such a long time, and the old familiar bumps and curves he expected on the way out to his hunting grounds were replaced with long stretches of highway. Wendover was definitely going on a trip. Diego Maximilian Jones, his trusty sidekick and all-around best friend, and pack rat, fretted as he saw all kinds of different-looking cars and trucks. The landscape had changed from orchards and cattleland to tall skyscrapers. The houses are huge. Giants must live here. They take up the whole sky. Timmy stopped the truck at a glaring red glow of a light. It's mesmerizing, all this color. DJ noticed a large rat scampering down the street. Hello, my name is DJ. He cleared his voice for a louder announcement. Diego Maximilian Jones. But he received no response. The rat seemed to have little interest in him. Everyone seems to be very busy here, Wendover. Are there any trees, DJ? Asked the hooded Wendover. Oh, yes, lots of them. Suddenly DJ saw a sparrowhawk perched in an elm tree above the light at which they were waiting. He called out to her. Oh, miss, may I ask you a question, please? She seemed to smile, and DJ blushed and tried to continue. May I ask, what do you call this very large place? The little bird cocked her head and replied in the most beautiful French accent. But of course, little rat, you are in San Francisco, city by the bay. DJ's heart skipped a beat. The light turned green, and the little falcon swooped out of sight, and the truck was off again. DJ choked a little from the exhaust. Wendover, she was French, a sparrowhawk that is French. I am in love. Being the practical bird he was, Wendover replied, My good friend, please don't forget. Think for a moment. What is a sparrowhawk's main diet? DJ answered, Rats and mice. Wendover continued, You must not forget the laws of nature, my friend. Even though Rhea is a red-tailed hawk and our friend, you must never take chances that could put you in harm's way. DJ thought for a second. You are very right, my smart friend. Maybe I should stick to cute pack rats. Wendover finished. It would be safer.
What inspired you to come up with a falconer losing his peregrine falcon in San Francisco?
That comes from a true story of a friend of mine that lost his bird in the area of Petaluma. And the bird flew all the way into the city and all around. And so that was the beginning of the story. Of course, the parrots and of San Francisco were something that I kind of inserted because I'd seen them before. But that's where I got the idea.
In your third book, Timmy gets sent back in time to King Richard's day. How did you come up with that idea?
I think that I can't ever get past swords, and I like kings, and one of my favorite kings is King Richard I. And when I thought of a new Wendover book, I thought of Timmy bumping his head and going back into a time warp, and he was my first choice and first king to go to. So it was a lot of fun.
Here are some lines from the third book, Wendover Meets the King. Your Majesty.
Timmy had been asked to take Wendover, his prize peregrine falcon, to a Renaissance fair. His English teacher, Mrs. Tyler, had set up the day. He would have his own booth, dress in old English costume, and answer questions about falcons and falconry. Mrs. Tyler also told him to smile a lot as the people passed by. He even had a pretty good English accent, too, because his sophomore class had just finished doing Shakespeare's comedy, A Midsummer Night's Dream. He had played the part of Nick Bottom, a would-be, could-be actor who gets a spell put on by Oberon, the fairy king, and is turned into a donkey. His hee-haw got lots of chuckles from the crowd. He had rehearsed a lot with Sarah, who played Titania, queen of the fairies. Her character was also under a spell and was now in love with him, or as reality would have it, with the donkey. Hee-haw! Sarah was a girl who was a friend, but he was working on combining those words. It was a warm day at the fair, and the barbecue meats, strong, rich coffees, and old-world scents like patchouli filled the air. Wendover sat quietly on his perch, cocking his head from time to time. Every so often, someone would come over and want to pet the bird or ask a question. A popular inquiry was, "How much does a bird like that cost?" Timmy always responded with, "He's priceless." The day was winding down, and Timmy was tired. He looked forward to flying Wendover. He hoped there would be some ducks on any of the ponds on his way home. He would like to see Wendover do his peregrine magic. On the drive back, he went from pond to pond and spotted no wild game. It was going to get dark soon, but Timmy decided to try one more place. The Bartlett Ranch was a main staple on his list of hunting grounds. It was natural cattle land that had never been touched by human plow or chisel. Lots of ducks flew into the ponds on the property, and pheasant abounded. And as he drove up to the gate, he met the caretaker, Dan. They shared some words and a warm handshake, and Timmy found out that Dan had just seen a couple of pheasant down the road around the berry patch. "If you get down there right now, I bet Wendover will catch dinner for you," Dan said. Timmy rushed down the bumpy road to the berry patch. He secured the telemetry, turned on the receiver, and heard that old familiar beep, 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 then struck Wendover's hood, lifted him high over his head, and curled his glove hand slightly as he let Wendover fly. "Now this is what I've been waiting for," Wendover said to himself. The falcon wasted no time climbing up into the sky and shortly reached a good pitch. Timmy let Roxy, his pointing lab, out of the truck and looked up to find Wendover straight above him. The falcon commanded the sky over the pheasant. He was up about 1,000 feet now and still climbing. Roxy locked onto the game bird. Her tail wagged twice as hard when she found a bird in the bush. Timmy waved his hat at Wendover as a signal to him to pay attention. Wendover looked down and waited for Timmy to flush. The hunting team was in place. "Go get him, Roxy!" Timmy kicked at the old rooster, and Roxy pounced, and the pheasant knew it was time to fly, and the bird exploded into the air and flew hard and fast for cover. There was another berry patch about 300 yards away, and the bird arced in the air, looking over his shoulder at the falcon and trying to get to the safety of the bush. Timmy looked straight up and shouted, "Wing over, Wendover!" Then he watched as Wendover stooped down towards the pheasant. Timmy ran in the direction of the hunt, but something went wrong. He tripped and fell to the ground, bumping his head on a smooth but large rock. All the lights went out, and Timmy lay there unconscious with his falcon in a stoop on a collision course with the rooster pheasant.
So you wrote a full-length musical of King Richard called Heart of the Lion. Was that an inspiration for Wendover Meets the King?
It was. I have an affinity for swords and kings, and one of my favorite kings is King Richard I of England. And yes, I did. I wrote a full-length musical based on his existence and life, and coming back, and Robin Hood is in it, and a lot of sorts of characters that we all know and love.
I hope you enjoyed this Getting to Know the Author segment and getting to meet Wendover and Roxy. Look for the adventures to continue with my dad's next book entitled DJ's Ancestral Treasure, featuring Wendover's trusty sidekick, the little pack rat Diego Maximilian Jones. I can't tell you much, I'm sworn to secrecy, but the ending is awesome. Check out Eric Stephen Box's blog at wingoverwendover.com. On Twitter, he will be feeding everyday events in real time of Wendover's flying season, and Facebook too. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the wonderful world of Wingover Wendover.
We love Wendover!